very common cause of hiatal hernia syndrome is constipation. So first of all, I want to define constipation, then give you a quick summary of the various factors that can lead to constipation, and then we'll sum it all up. So constipation is defined as less than 1 to 3 bowel movements every single day, and these are soft, easy to pass. They are formed yet soft. So people talk about kind of the texture of a banana, but they're not only easy to pass, but you experience what's called complete evacuation. And that is the feeling that everything that needed to be evacuated occurred. And so it's not this feeling of like, oh, there's a little bit more, I don't feel like everything came out, that sort of sensation. And some of you might be surprised to hear that it should be a daily activity, that anywhere 1 to 3 times is considered normal, because I have definitely met hundreds and thousands of patients over my decades of experience that do not experience that, and they're told by their primary care physician that this is normal for them, and that's the term that's really used. So somebody skips 2 or 3 days and it's like, well, you know, if that's always been you, then that's normal for you. That is not true. So I can tell you irrefutably that when you really get to the root cause of what's malfunctioning in the person's body and normalize their GI function, their gut function, they then start moving their bowels every single day, if not multiple times. So now we've defined it. So how does constipation lead to hiatal hernia syndrome? You may know that what happens with hiatal hernia is your stomach, which is situated on your left side toward the bottom of your ribs. It's beneath your diaphragm. What happens is that it gets compressed and it gets pulled up. And that pressure, that's the key word, that's pushing on it, then it has to elevate because it's connected to your mouth via your esophagus. So that connection forces that when there's pressure, it's going to get pulled upwards. Then it pushes up into your diaphragm, and over time that opening for the diaphragm that should just allow the nice narrow esophagus to pass through now widens. And that's what a hiatal hernia is. A hiatus is just a hole or opening, and a hernia is something protruding through an opening which should not be, and in this case the stomach. So what happens is with constipation, you get increased intra-abdominal pressure. So the fact that the colon is sort of backing up and it has all this stool in it that should be getting passed, and that's been happening. This is not a one-time constipation will cause a hiatal hernia. It's something that's been occurring over a period of time, and that leads to just more pressure. And people who are constipated can feel it. There, you know, I've had people say, I feel like I'm full up to here, you know, and so that pressure builds, pushes on the stomach, it elevates, and now you have hiatal hernia. So we understand the mechanism, but now we have to say, how do you handle the problem of constipation? And as in anything that you hear me speak about, it's very personalized to each individual and how they got there. But let's summarize the various areas that could be involved, and then I'll dive in a little deeper. So one is definitely diet. Of course, the quality of what you're eating is emphasizing and impacting how your bowels are moving and the constituency of those bowels. Food sensitivities is another thing. You can be sensitive to dairy or lactose. That's a very common one to cause constipation, but so is gluten sensitivity, and many other food sensitivities can lead to that just by nature of inflammation and the fact that your body is not doing well with that particular food. The big one is dysbiosis. So this is referring to the balance of the bacteria in your colon. And it's estimated there's anywhere from 40 to 100 trillion bacteria in your colon. And it's very important that they're healthy and happy bacteria. Otherwise, they're creating varying degrees of havoc. And we're going to go into some of those specifics. Then there's something called small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, and this is where bacteria that should be maintained in the colon have migrated up into the small intestine, and they produce their own bacteria. They can produce something called methane gas, and that's known to cause constipation as well. A history of having IBS is another contributing factor, especially IBS-C, meaning constipation. A sedentary lifestyle is a big one because we need to move, and the body is designed to move around, and that movement of your body helps your colon move and get things moving within it. So a sedentary lifestyle is definitely problematic. And last but not least, our vagus nerve, which is your longest cranial nerve. It is very involved in hiatal hernia syndrome because it not only goes to your chest, but it goes to your heart and your esophagus and your stomach, and it goes really to your entire abdominal cavity, including all your digestive organs. So when it is irritated, it can definitely influence how the colon is working, in this case with constipation. So that's your overview. Now, what frequently doctors recommend when they hear you're constipated is, right, fill in the blank, eat more fiber. And it's not that that's a terrible recommendation, but it is bad when it doesn't work and it makes you feel worse. So there's a difference between soluble fiber, which is recommended to get your colon moving, versus insoluble fiber. They're both very important in your diet, but insoluble fiber is not particularly good for getting your colon moving. Also, if you're on a very low fiber diet, which you are in the majority, unfortunately, of Americans who do not get enough fiber, if you do too much too soon, that can be overwhelming for your colon, especially if you do something else that Americans are very commonly associated with, which is dehydration. So you're not consuming enough water, and you need that water to get that fiber moving. Otherwise, it just kind of compacts, and then you can really be in trouble and really be miserable. So it's very important that we start with the insoluble fiber, like chia seeds and flax seeds and apples. What else is on my list? Citrus, psyllium husks, beans. So you start with the insoluble. You really keep that water, that 6 to 8 glasses of water. Those have got to go in tandem. And also the third, you got to move. So those three, if you're sort of trying this, you want to make sure that all three are happening. Okay, now what happens with dysbiosis, meaning it's too many bad bacteria versus good bacteria. What happens is that healthy gut bacteria, they ferment fiber and make something called short chain fatty acids, and they're very, very healthy for your colon, but they also stimulate what's called peristalsis, which is motility of your colon. So they also keep your gut lining healthy, so you don't have leaky gut. So that's where fiber comes in and really helps produce these wonderful short-chain fatty acids. But if you're not consuming enough fiber, you're not making enough of those, and then you get this slowing down of your gut. And it really becomes a catch-22 because constipation breeds bad bacteria breed dysbiosis, or the unhealthy bacteria, and then that bacterial imbalance worsens the dysbiosis because you've got more bad bacteria, and now you've got more constipation. So around and around you go. That's why when we work with patients, we're always getting to the root cause. Why are you constipated versus the next person? And there are reasons that have to be identified. As I mentioned, the dysbiosis, the diet, etc., are very, very important. But what is it for you in particular? And then when we diagnose, as an example, bad bacteria, okay, which bad bacteria or which parasite, or what is it? And then of course you got to kill it. And while you're supporting all the good guys. Another interesting fact is that Your gut makes 90% of your serotonin, and we think of serotonin as happy mood and not being depressed and all of that, which it absolutely is, but it also helps trigger bowel movements. So again, that gut-brain connection is so utterly fascinating. And so having enough serotonin by having enough healthy bacteria not only keeps us happy and stable mood, but it influences gut motility as well. So yeah, that was everything actually I wanted to go over. I was just checking my notes, but it's extremely important to have these regular bowel movements every single day. One thing that happens when we're working with, again, hiatal hernia syndrome patients is that that increased intra-abdominal pressure, if it's coming from chronic constipation, we've got to figure out that source of inflammation and pressure. Otherwise, they're just not going to get better. And it's not difficult. The good news is it's not difficult. The good news is that it is a natural program, but it's very specific to the individual. So we're very much customizing our programs to you because you're different than someone else, and how you got here, your health history, etc. So I hope that answers the question of how this works. I've been asked to do a deep dive into constipation and how could that possibly cause hiatal hernia. So hopefully that explains it, and it also defines constipation, because a lot of people don't know what it is, and they've been told again that it's normal for you to skip days without bowel movements, which is not true. So I hope you enjoyed the content. If you liked it, please subscribe to the channel. We're trying to increase our subscribers so more people can see this information. I love my subscribers. I love all of you who watch these videos and comment. I try to answer pretty much every single comment that I get, because I want for you what I want for my patients and what I see and my team sees with our patients, which is regaining health. I think is one of the best gifts you can give somebody, and we delight in doing that, and I want that for you. So like the channel, also give it a thumbs up, and we'll talk soon.